What is going on, Governor? It's Chisgule here, and today we're going to give you 13 amazing priorities to give yourself a great start in Rise of Kingdoms. We're in on our mini account at 4 million power. Our primary account has, 97 million power. However, with this restart that we did recently, this is a part of our restart project. We've been getting a lot of experience in the early game and wanted to share some advice with you. So let's get right into the mix. The first thing that is absolutely critical for your progression in the early game in this list of 13 is getting into a great alliance. I know this seems like really straightforward. Of course, a good alliance goes a long way. That's largely in part because of the chests that you get when your alliance members are buying. So even if you are free to play, these gifts that you can get are no joke for the rare chests. Here you can see we picked up 15 hours of speed up from a golden chest, and then just underneath it, another 10 hours of speed up. I'm telling you, getting into a good alliance in the early game is crucial. A lot of ways that you can go about doing that. However, if you are rocking a jumper account, getting into a kingdom that is within its first 10 days of life, you can come in with some amount of extra power that gives you a little bit of edge in that process. The second tip of 13 is that you really should put an emphasis on doing well in the early game events. And honestly, you should set aside some amount of time to play a lot while you're just getting started. There is so much to do, and we're going to cover some of those things in just a moment. But doing well in the early game events can give you a lot of rewards and can give you a jump start in your Rise of Kingdoms career, and also can help you stay in that really top tier alliance. The next priority for the early game, and now we're getting much more tactical, is to level up your military buildings so that you can keep troop training going 24/7. The thing about the early game that's pretty interesting is that, I'll speed these up just so that I can show this. In the early game, you're only going to be able to train troops for like an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, which means that overnight, when you're sleeping, if you sleep for 8 or you don't look at the game for 12 hours, all that time is just dead time. All that time is just dead time where, leveling up these buildings is kind of like the equivalent of having troop training speed ups. Because now instead of having dead time where they're not training anything, you're training something meaningful. Now, part of what helps with that is leveling up the tier of your troops. So even though the level of my building here is level 17, Tier 1 troops are not going to cut it for overnight. Tier 2 troops are not even going to cut overnight. It's got to be those Tier 3 troops to make it overnight. So I'm just going to queue up actually a little bit of this, and then I'll, speed them up if I need to before I go to bed, and queue up the full amount of time so that when I wake up in the morning and I open up Rise of Kingdoms, I can go in and get some more troop training going. Getting these military buildings going around the clock will be really advantageous, and you do want all of them to be able to do that. That's going to take a lot of resources and a lot of speed ups. My recommendation is always to speed up these buildings after they've been helped the max number of times, because when they're upgrading, you can't be training troops, so your speed ups do double duty. The sooner you finish the building, the sooner you're training troops, so every speed up is doubled in its effectiveness. I would get these buildings up to at least 15. I feel like 17 or 18 is a better place, but I just flashed on the screen where I'm at: 17, 21, 18, and 15. So that gives you some perspective. The next recommendation and priority that I would have for you in the early game, this is priority number 4, is keeping your academy constantly upgrading as your city hall upgrades. The reason for this is that your research speed bonus increases as your academy levels up and new research becomes available to you. And it often is very, very powerful research. So keep that academy leveling up as you level up your city hall in the early game, and that will unlock new research opportunities and, in addition, increase the speed at with which you do research, which is really quite strong. Quite strong. Tip number 5 as an early game priority is to explore the map. Your main quest line will show up over here, and along the way you will have to do exploration In order to progress that quest line, you're also going to find caves and other goodies on the map. It will be helpful to be exploring. So my recommendation is to spend your time doing that. We, of course, have a bunch of videos where we talk about this, but one quick tip that can really help you out is that when you're scouting far, far away, and you do want to scout far, far away, you can pick a place like here when you're doing your scouting, because you can see that it's going to require the scout to run all on the inside of this ledge and potentially all the way around to get the other side of this mountain as well. Leveraging these corners to get free scouting is really, really powerful. For instance, I don't actually have much to reveal here anymore, but you can see if I was to explore here, I would get both sides of this mountain. And if all of this was still needing exploration, it would potentially go and sort of explore it for free. So that would be my quick tip to you as you prioritize, as tip number 5, exploring the map. Now, the 6th priority is to start to get a primary commander leveled up for the open field and barbarians. Now, if you're spending money in the VIP shop, that easy answer is, of course, going to be Minamoto as the commander that you're going to be working on as your peacekeeper. I personally am so all in on having a bunch of peacekeepers for the early game, especially, that I actually choose Britain as my starting civilization so that I get Boudica, so that I get the 20% experience boost from Boudica, which is really quite strong. I get the extra damage to barbarians, I get the experience boost, and all you have to do is take the skill level 1 and you get the 20% experience boost. It's really quite good. I use Minamoto with Lohar currently, and Boudica with Sun Tzu, as I am powering up and battling barbarians in the early game. The 7th priority for you as you are journeying into Rise of Kingdoms in the early game is to focus on your city hall. It's a huge mistake to level up all of your buildings evenly. You don't need to do it. Every time you level up your city hall, there's a bunch of advantages. Your troop capacity goes up, but also the number of troops you can have out on the field at the same time, the number of marches goes up. So at City Hall 11, that becomes 3 marches, and at City Hall 17, that becomes 4 marches, and I'm almost at City Hall 22, where I get the 5th march. That is an important priority, and you should focus on that. Now, every time you level up your City Hall, you're going to have to do the quarry, and after you've done the quarry, you can do the tavern, and then you can also do the wall after you've done the tavern. And there'll be a bunch of other stuff as well that the game is going to require you to do, depending on what it is that that level of City Hall requires. I think I had to get my hospital to 21 in this case, and to get my hospital to 21, I had to get my archery range to 21. Anyways, it was a process, and often it is, and that's a-okay, but you're better off pushing the limits on that City Hall by focusing on the critical path rather than leveling up everything. Now, even though I just said that, the 8th priority for you is going to be putting a little bit of extra attention into your hospitals. And the reason is that it's easier to sleep at night knowing that your resource count is low, so you really don't have to worry about resources getting stolen, and your troop count is covered by your hospital. In other words, you're not going to have troops die if you're attacked overnight. My hospitals are now at 16, 17, 21, and 17. That means that I can store 131,000 troops in the hospital, and my troop count is sitting at 201,000. So I could still lose a lot of my troops, but at least I've got some amount of coverage that's pretty reasonable. And in order to make that coverage last as long as possible and extend as far as possible, I try to upgrade the tier of troop that I'm working on rather than training new troops. So you can see here, in my perfect world, I am upgrading knights from T3 to T4 rather than training them new. That would be my recommendation to you as well to prevent your hospital from getting filled up. The only exception is the siege units, and let's talk about that now as priority number 9, getting enough siege units to actually do some really meaningful gathering. My troops have returned back to town now. I've got 2 marches that are in town. I need to go and hunt some barbarians. We'll do that in just a little bit. However, you're going to find that you're not going to have enough siege units to park your gatherers into a resource node overnight and really fully take advantage of that, because the capacity of siege units is way, way, way higher. Let's see here. Can I show this from here? I might need to go in like this. Push the info button. There we go. The load of a T1 siege unit is 20, which is really, really strong. The load of a T4 knight is only 10. Half as much, and that's a T4, right? So you really want to focus on those siege units. I've got a bunch of T1s because they move faster. It doesn't matter if they get killed in the open field because the resource cost and time to repair them is very, very low. That is putting my hospital capacity in some amount of jeopardy, but I'm okay with it. It's important that I gather those resources in the early game. That should be your priority number 9. Priority number 10 on the topic of gathering is going to be to get your constants to 5511. You want to get your constants to 5511 using the elite commander sculptures, the universal sculptures, and there'll be events that award those to you. As you're progressing through the early game, you'll get a bunch of those. Every single elite commander sculpture should be going to constants to first get her to 5/5, maxing that second skill, then unlock the last 2 skills. You really want them all to land in Queen of Sicily. She is arguably the best gatherer in the game with a 10% resource bonus and also a cool 15% gathering speed for everything, 20% for wood. Really quite strong and very meaningful in the early game to start to get that extra resource gathering going. And, along those lines, you really should level up at least one of these commanders to the point that you start to get this talent over here. The more the better. That's a cool 6% extra resources when you complete gathering. That way, when you go to a resource node overnight, you're getting an extra 6% resources on top. I know that doesn't sound like much, but believe me, these micro optimizations do go a long way over time. And you'll be playing this game for a while, so you may as well start to get advantage of that now and enjoy that for the rest of the time that you're playing the game. The next priority, and this is priority number 10, in my opinion, is to get Sun Tzu as a garrison commander on your wall. In my opinion, he is the best epic garrison commander by a long shot. It's not even close. You definitely want to get him onto your wall. Start by maxing the first skill, then you can take him to 111, and here is the way I've been doing this. Boudica gets a bunch of sculptures already by virtue of being the civilization that I've chosen. However, Sun Tzu, I put all of my epic universal sculptures into in order to get him powered up. And here is the build that I have been using to put him on my wall and protect my city. I feel pretty good about this build. I'm making my way over to Feral Nature. After I get Feral Nature, I'll head up to Undying Fury. That's the game plan. This is the build. That's the plan. Get them on your wall. That way, it's at least a little bit of a deterrent, but also can actually offer some pretty meaningful protection. Priority number 12 is to get some gear for your open field commanders and your garrison commander. Now, if I show you here, Minamoto is my primary open field commander. I've got some really sick cavalry gear. This is really quite strong. I've also got other gear because if I'm going to bring a single march on the battlefield to fight other players, it's actually going to be a mixed army. I don't have enough cavalry to rock only cavalry at this point. So I've slapped onto this guy every piece of gear I could, and I feel pretty good about his gear setup. I've also got some amount of gear on Sun Tzu since he's on my wall, and it is only the primary commander whose gear will apply when you are doing combat. The 13th priority, and I know I've given you a lot, is to push in the expedition so that you can get a bunch of Ethelflood sculptures, and you want to take her to 5111 as quickly as you can. I'm still not even at that point, honestly. I'm still working on her. Let's see here. We're at 4. Once I've got that last skill unlocked, I probably won't put a bunch of experience tomes into her, but I will start to use her and level her up naturally with Minamoto. So it'll probably be Minamoto with Ethelfled, and then Boudica with maybe Lohar in the start. And I know that this is counter to advice I've given in other places where I strongly advise against pairing peacekeepers together. Right now, I only have enough troops for 2 half marches, right? So here's the 2 half marches that I do. I'll zoom out a little more. March number 1 is a bunch of cavalry, and I'll update my preset there. March that out. March number 2 is my Boudica Sun Tzu. And in fact, I can't even make that march complete right now because I've got a whole bunch of bowmen and spearmen that are out gathering, which is super, super awkward. Did I mention to you that you're going to not have enough units to be farming? Let's see here. Where are they? They must be in here, right? Yep. There they are. There's my archers. There's my cavalry. I'm actually going to bring these folks home and go refill that resource node in a bit with some other troops because I got to go spend down these action points. Ethelfled will be an amazing commander for you in the end game of Rise of Kingdoms, so get started now and enjoy her for the long run. My friends, hopefully you found this video helpful with these early game priorities. Is there another priority that we missed? What else would you include if this list was 20? There is a lot of things that we should be doing, and honestly, I'm really enjoying this restart project, having a ton of fun as I play through the game all over again. If you found this video helpful, please do like and subscribe, or I'll put a card up in the top. Check out the other videos in our restart playlist, and until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.